time on how my parents sold me to my uncle. Okay, so boom, let's get straight into it. Ever since I was a kid, everyone would compliment me on how beautiful I was. Literally got complimented everywhere me and my family went. And I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, it's important. My parents didn't see me as their beautiful child. My parents seen me as dollar signs. I was literally up for sale and my parents were bidding on who would pay the most to marry me. My mom started teaching me how to cook and clean and how to keep a man happy. One day while my mom was getting me ready and all dolled up for dinner, I told my mom I didn't want to marry anyone and she flat out told me I didn't have a choice. Well, little did I know that exact night my mom and I was having this conversation, my uncle was downstairs waiting on me. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how my parents sold me to my uncle. Okay, so boom, like I said, my mom was getting me all dolled up for dinner and my uncle was downstairs waiting on me. I didn't know this at the time, of course. My mom and I go downstairs and I hear my dad say, "There she is. Isn't she beautiful?" Then I looked at a man who just smiled and said, "I like it." I asked my mom who was that guy and she told me, "Shh, that's your father's brother, sweetie, no more talking." So we all sat down and had dinner and my uncle was just staring at me, smiling at me and looking at me up and down. He was literally studying me. My dad even looked at him for validation. I was so confused. Little did I know this wasn't just a dinner. It was a tryout, an audition, if you will. If I would be good enough for my uncle. He was actually rich and looking for a wife and my dad was trying to sell me to him. Running out of time, like for part 3.
Story time. My parents found out that I was dating a white boy. So a little background information. My parents are super strict, especially my dad. And on top of that, my dad thought that races should not mix. One of his sayings was, "You don't see a blue jay fucking a pigeon." AKA, white people and black people should not be together. Sounds fucking stupid. Yeah, I know. Anyways, like I was saying, it was my freshman year of high school and I had been dating this boy for 2 months. And of course he was white. And we had to keep it super low-key because if any of my friends found out about it, they would have fucking told my dad. Now when I look back at it, those weren't good friends at all. Anyways, every Friday, my boyfriend and I would go to the movies. And we would go to this theater that was 45 minutes away because nobody that I knew would be there. The only person that knew that I was dating a white boy was my sister. Well, the one day after the movies, I couldn't get a ride home, so I had to get a ride home with him and his family. And as soon as I pulled up, my parents were waiting outside, like for part 2. Part 2 about how my parents found out that I was dating a white boy. So like I said, my sister couldn't come pick me up, so I had to get a ride with him and his family. And what do you know, as soon as we pull up to my fucking house, my dad is standing on the porch waiting for me. So I told his parents to drive around the block one more time while I called my sister and told her to distract my dad. So as we're driving up to my house again, I see that my dad isn't on the porch. So I run into the house before he could see me getting out of a white boy's car. So a few months go by and we're still dating, very low key. And the one night at 3 in the morning, I get woken up by my sister. And she says, "You better delete any pictures that you have of you and you know who off your phone. And you better come up with a story right now. Because one of your friends took pictures of you walking with him in the hallways and kissing him behind the stairwell at school." So after I deleted everything off my phone, a few seconds later, my dad came into my room screaming his head off. He was so mad. I ended up getting my ass beat, and I also got grounded from my phone for 4 months. But after that, my mom ended up leaving my dad, and then him and I got back together.
Storytime of how I caught. I am genuinely so terrified of national parks because of all the missing persons cases, in addition to a lot of the unsolved mysteries that have happened within it. And one of the most terrifying ones is one that happened just back in August. We're going to be talking about the case of the Garish family today. So on Sunday, August 15th of 2021, John, his wife Ellen, and their 1-year-old daughter Miju went out for a hike, also taking their dog Oxy with them. They had recently moved to Mariposa, California in order to get away from the big city. They were very avid, very experienced hikers who really loved enjoying the outdoors with their daughter. Well, the nanny came at her scheduled time the next day and found the house to be completely quiet. There was no one home. Obviously, you don't want to panic too soon, but by 11 p.m., she was definitely worried. So she contacted the house manager and then they contacted missing persons report. And law enforcement reacted immediately. One of the Mariposa County sheriffs knew that they were new in town and lived really close to a trailhead called Heights Cove Trail. And it was so close that they could have just walked to it. So that Tuesday morning at 2 a.m., they found the family truck parked in that parking area right outside of the. So about 1.5 miles from the parking lot where they found the Garish family's car, their deceased bodies were finally discovered. There were no signs of trauma to the head, to the body, no bites, no puncture sites, no burns. And when sent off to get an autopsy, their results were inconclusive. Authorities say they have not one clue what happened to them. We are currently waiting on a toxicology report, and I might wait to post this until we have that, which will hopefully help identify what happened to this family. But there's just so many weird things to be talked about with this case. One TikToker that I found was talking about the way that they were positioned. John was found in a sitting up position next to his baby and next to his dog, while Ellen was just a little bit up the hill. While some people have speculated that maybe she was leaving to go get help, their only cell phone was in John's pocket, so she probably would have grabbed the phone first, right? For
Story time about how I was the side chick. So it was my freshman year and I had just moved to a new school. And I lived next to this senior boy. You know, the one that thinks you're good enough to do stuff with, but not good enough to date? Yeah, that one. Well, we both were on the same bus and I thought he was really cute, so I asked him for his Snapchat. And I got it. So we started talking a lot, and we would always talk about me sneaking over his house because my parents were super strict. So homecoming night, I saw him grinding with this girl, but I didn't exactly think anything of it because literally everybody was just being passed around. Well, I went home after, and at like 2 in the morning, I got a text from him saying to come over. So I went over there, we did the dirty, and then I started to go over there almost every other night. At 2 in the morning. And there was this one girl that I got really close with. And I told her all about the situation, but I didn't tell her till like 3 months after it was happening, because he told me not to tell anybody, of course. And she goes, "You know he has a girlfriend, right?" So I felt really bad and confronted him, like for part 2. Part 2 of me being the side chick. So that night he had asked me to come over again. And I went over there, but it's not what you think it was for. I got over there and I was like, "When were you gonna tell me you had a girlfriend?" Literally, this comment made me want to throw up. He goes, "What do you mean? I thought you knew." So I was like, "No, I actually didn't." And he goes, "So does that mean you don't want to come over anymore?" He goes, "I really liked you, and I was gonna break up with my girlfriend for you." Which I know this is so bad, but that made me happy because I had the biggest crush on him. But then I just left. And the girl that he was dating was a senior. And I asked my friend for her Snapchat so I could Snapchat her. So I did, and I told her everything that was going on. And somehow it got flipped around on me. Her saying that I was obsessed with her boyfriend. And then she got the nudes that I sent her boyfriend and sent them around the whole school. My new school. Moral of the story, if he says he's single, make sure he's actually single.
Storytime of how my best friend got so weirdly obsessed with me that she even plotted to kill my boyfriend. So at the time, me and this girl, let's just call her Olivia, had only been friends for about 2 years. I mean, we really did everything together. We were with each other 24/7, and I mean, we were pretty good friends. But the only thing about our friendship is she did not like when I had other friends. I mean, she didn't have any other friends herself, but literally she would joke around about strangling my other friends because she didn't like when I gave my attention to anyone else. But honestly, I just thought of it as a joke. And then I started dating this guy, let's just name him Jacob. He was probably the sweetest guy I had ever met, and he was a real simp for me. So we started dating, and about 4 or 5 months go by, and he started getting these texts from a random number. And it would always be cringy things like "leave her or you die," "get away from her," and like stupid cringy threats. Then one night, me and him were just hanging out. Then he gets a text with his exact address saying he had till tonight to leave me, or he wouldn't see another day. Then we hear a knock at the door. I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how my best friend got so weirdly obsessed with me that she plotted to kill my boyfriend. So continuing on with the story, we heard a knock at the door and it ended up being her. And she said, "Oh, I'm just coming by to check on you and make sure you're okay." Mind you, we were at his house. And he looks at me like, what is she doing here? So I asked her to leave, and then she ends up getting so mad at me just because I asked her to give us alone time. So the night goes on, and then when I get home, she's in my room. At this time, my whole entire family was out of town, and I was the only one home. So I was like, hey. It was literally just like a normal night, and then I go to shower, and when I get back out of the shower, she's gone. And then my boyfriend calls me, and he goes, "Why is Maddie here?" She had like this black mask on, but she's stupid enough to not realize that we know it's her. And I mean, we're being real here. She was my best friend at the time, so of course he's not going to call the police on her. But she had a knife in her hand, and he opens the door and he like pins her against the wall and then calls 911, I guess. And then to sum it up, when they get there, she tells them everything that she was going to do, and then they put her in a mental hospital. But she said that she was going to murder everybody that gets close to her.